Hey guys, welcome to Sunday Mix Up, whatever you want to call it. Me and Sarah. Sorry we didn't do Thursday. Not really sorry, because just playing for that. Sometimes we're probably gonna maybe shoot emails out, switch it up, do both the days together, and just create different scenarios. I'm sitting further back, as you can see. I got it zoomed out a little bit so that way I can actually um, do some pelvic tilt stuff today. Um, and then demonstrate. I got to work after this, so well after Sarah and stuff. Um, so I wanted to do a scenario if you had to work, if you had to do some kind of physical activity, or just basically anything that I would suggest you typically not foam roll and stretch and do your stuff for recovery before you go do that stuff. I would tell you always that you should do it after. But if you had to, or you felt like crap and you were trying to go to the gym or do something, what would you do? So we're going to go over that. But overall, I wanted to really touch on the pelvic tilt. I don't think people have the true understanding of it. I really, but then again, like it was so easy to get, but I felt like I could never get it. It took me forever before I grasped what a pelvic tilt was. And it's really, I still look back and I'm like, how did I not get that? It's like this or like this, like, why don't you get it? But understanding, like they treat the pelvis as like this is one side and this is the other side, front to back. So it's completely different in your traditional, you know what I mean? Anterior, posterior. Anterior would be like the front side, posterior. But when you're like, wait, what do you mean? Like the anterior tilt, it's tilted in the front, but it's also tilted in the back. You have to see like an anterior tilt, you have to understand that you are tilting towards the front. Posterior tilt, you're tilting towards the back. It's basically which way the pelvis is shifting towards is which way you want to. Well, I mean, shifting down. So I guess you would call it towards it. But it's like if you have a neutral pelvis and then you're dipping, whichever way that it's dipping down is the way that you're calling it. So if you were to have a anterior pelvic tilt, then you would be like this, like most every human being on earth. You look like you're gonna fall over. That's why many of my pictures, they look like exactly that. They look like people are like this, like they're doing one of those things and like the I don't even know what they do, dance moves and all different types of stuff when people do it, where they lean forward. Movies even do it, mimes, stuff like that. So there's some people who are actually really, really talented at that, and I wonder. I wonder if an anterior or a neutral pelvis would actually benefit that more. Maybe an anterior would be so strong like this that you could actually be better for those kind of moves. And I bet maybe those people who do like dance moves like that, if it was somebody I worked with, that would be like a whole new case scenario. Like he's better like that, but still, even if you were better doing this, or falling forward like that, you would be better at doing that by being strong, neutral, and allowing yourself to have the freedom to go, like, I can do that and hold myself pretty good. I feel the back of my knee wants to explode on this side. Not really bad, but it not painfully, but it feels like it's just locked and doesn't want to do anything. So anterior pelvic tilt, ghetto booty. Posterior pelvic tilt is like the lady in front of you at Walmart that's like this, and her back is really square like this. I call it SpongeBob. That's probably mean, but just a description of like when you see it, like SpongeBob has the like little tight no booty, and then he has the big square body, which is traditionally and unfortunately what a lot of older people are progressing to nowadays. It's really easy to fix it, and all you have to do is open up somebody's legs, and then boom, 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 everything drops, and now it's like your foundation isn't stuck like at an angle. You would never build a house on top of something like that. And then we look at like why we look so dysfunctional when this is our foundation. It's like this and it's rotated, and then everything goes with it because the fascial network doesn't distinguish between regions. Or I should say, it doesn't differentiate between regions. It doesn't have any favoritism. It basically is going to, if you push your knee this way or that way, should stand straight. Push your knee this way or that way. The entire body is going to change with that. There's no way that you can say it won't. Now, when you run into calcified tissue. So say your knee goes this way and you're calcified like a brick all the way through your hip. You'd have a lot different issues anyways, to think about versus just getting a path of tension. But sometimes you can have calcified pockets that will actually stop the pattern. Like if this gets worse, it might not necessarily travel up here the same way it would on somebody like me. Like if I had slammed my knee or something like that and I was walking like I was favoring it really, really hard, I would cause all sorts of mirrored passive tension, and the adhesions and trigger points they'd be represented all over my body. So it would go here and I would have a lot of tension on the outside because it would be like trying to fight that inward rotation of the knee and the hip. And then you have like everything that would go up. You'd have major tension on the left side of your body because the right hip is always going to affect your left shoulder. That's the X-sling of fascia that goes through the spiral lines. You look up superficial spiral line, you'll see it. So anterior pelvic tilt, okay, boom. You're like this, okay? So why is it anterior? Because it's tipping towards the anterior side of our body, okay? Our butt is up, so what's tipping? The front is tipping. Okay, here's my hand is my pelvis, okay? Neutral, anterior. You can typically look at most people's belt line too, like the way that their waist sits. Big belly people, like big belly guys and stuff like that, it's like they'll be like this, and then their belt is like perfectly in line with that. And then it dips down on the front because the pelvis is dipping down in the front and their belly hangs. So a lot of reasons why people's belly is able to consistently stay bigger than the rest of their body is it's not seated against fat. It's pulled away from the weight of it. It does. I mean, it's still seated more or less, but it's not. It has this pull away. So it's like cooking an egg over a frying pan like this. When you get like that seated, it's not like you can spot target fat, but it will actually make a difference in the efficiency of your fat burn. And we'll go over a little bit. Posterior tilt, you almost never see. You really almost never see it. It really comes with injury and old people because it's like this. Actually, a lot of my hippie friends have it too. When I say hippie, I'm totally hippie too with so much. But a lot of my friends who are really into they're just like straight up like hippies to me. They're very like they dress like hippies, they act like hippies, but they hippies, I don't know, they walk very guarded, very controlled. And I'm not saying every one of them does. Some of them are all over. Everybody's, every demographic of people is different. But a lot of my hippie friends, I don't know why. I have no idea. There are a lot of I'm surrounded by a bunch of holistic people, and a lot of them are just like this. But a lot of them, they're very shallow. They're walking like they're on ice. Excuse me. So when you're injured, you walk like you're on ice. And in turn, your body will tuck and like you're in this guarded state. Okay, it's totally different than somebody who's here. Also, with a posterior pelvic tilt, you'll almost never see somebody with a butt. Okay, it's rare. The butt starts to atrophy and disintegrate, and in that restriction, you'll see the fat won't build up the same here. You can still get people who have it that build up some fat on it, but typically, like if you restrict the flow to an area, you almost always see fat develop in other areas. Now that I think about that, I could probably do a study on that and prove that with some more evidence. But you restrict flow to an area, you're going to see a lack of stuff in the area. So if you're in an anterior pelvic tilt, what are we going to have? We're going to have low back curve. Okay, we're going to have that lordosis. We're going to have the roundness of the upper back starting to happen. Okay, so you're typically like this. Most people, they come and then when they see you, they might not be this bad, but typically people are rolled forward, or like this. I just fixed mine really well last night, so I feel like I'm all proud. But most of it was up in my neck and just figuring out to take your hand and push this direction and not coming through here on my neck personally. I think it really applies to everybody, but sometimes you have to go towards the front. So for me, it was a huge difference. But anyways, the anterior tilt, you can see it, the curve of the back. We're going to get these ribs sticking out. Okay. All you bikini girls, competitors, athletes, people in general, when you see your ribs stick out, it's because you got an anterior pelvic tilt. It's almost always. If you can prove to me a different scenario for that, I will include it in my repertoire of speaking every single time. Trust me. It's not about saying like, oh, you couldn't have this. I don't care. It is typically indicative of an anterior pelvic tilt. As this happens, this goes out. You see it, right? No, yes, no. I can switch it up. It's there, okay? And even if it doesn't like protrude right now because I actively work on mine, it still causes it to be front loaded, sagittal. Everything's going to sit right through here. And when you do that, eventually it's going to build up. It's either going to, and when you push like this, okay, your rib cage opens. All right. It may not just fly open because your sternum and everything, xiphoid process, all this stuff through here keeps it locked up, but it opens. Okay. So when you have an anterior pelvic tilt, I always push this back around on people. Why? Because it gets pulled like this and opened in the front. Your rib cage is all sticking out. So many women out there just like, oh, I got rib cage sticking out, and they come in and we fix it. What I do, I push this back closed and I open this up so the rib cage comes back around. And then once you open it back up around in here, it closes. It sits in. It's not going to be all distended out here. So if you're going like this and you feel a bunch of hardness and everything's sitting through here, then you know that you have most likely an anterior pelvic tilt that's causing your rib cage to push forward here. Okay. It's going to cause a major, like, it's going to cause your abs to look like they're off. It's going to cause your abs to look like they run up into your chest. It's going to cause you to not really get this nice round boob kind of pec look. And if you're a woman, it will definitely fight your boobs themselves. It will make them fall and atrophy, and they won't look as good, and they will look like they age faster. Period. It's guaranteed. So keeping yourself out of a pelvic tilt will actually make you as a woman look like your whole breast area doesn't age as fast, and it'll look like it sits more around all the time. Guys, you'll look like you get a full round development of your pec that meets the bottom and the top the same way instead of you having one or the other, or I mean the bottom and not the top typically. And it also will eliminate the fact that most guys like myself for years, I don't have a big chest, so I don't have it, but I actually have the bottom now rounds. I never had this at all before. Well, what was it? It was a big, massive anterior pelvic tilt stuck there, and it had fused everything through here because you could see it on me. It naturally runs together. And this is after me working on it for years. But my work is all here. You see, I push and it just sticks out as I do that. That's where all of my pressure, because I don't know, just naturally in the way that I press on people, it's low and I'm up here, whatever it is. It puts all my pressure right through here. So from everything that I've seen to do in my life, kind of had that in sports. And then now it's just way, way, way worse with my work, but I've actively tried to fix it. And it goes to show you, if you can supersede the amount of pressure that I put on my own body in a week working on people, I'll be shocked. I know there's people who do as much for sure. I know a lot of laborers that do some very, very intense work, and I would say that me and them actively do different ways of beating the crap out of our body for long periods of time throughout the week. And because of that, the only reason I even say that is not to say that my work or whatever. I'm just saying that I challenge my body, I think, about as hard as you can in a work week physically. The amount of time I hold things, the amount of just time that I'm doing things, and the intensity of what I'm doing. So it's makes sense that this area and whatever I'm leveraging or whatever you're leveraging with a very intense job is going to be the thing that you have to work on the most. But positive note, I have been able to offset everything that I've been ever dealing with, and I'm improving now. And that's to say that doesn't matter. Okay. I think that my job would be just about as hard as you could push your physical body with certain things. Okay. And because of that, I'm saying that no matter what job you have, it is possible, and you should have hope for any situation, any amount of tension, any amount of development or progress into hardcore tension that you would have week upon week upon week with your job. It is possible to offset it. It is possible to have a perfect alignment. But you do need to take the linear curve of how old you were getting, how hard you are working, how much stress it's putting on the body. And then you have to take your recovery and you have to apply it accordingly in those exact variables. Each one, though, the frequency you're doing it, the intensity that you're doing it, and the age that you're becoming, those all have to be taken into consideration. They all have to be accounted for as you build and modify year upon year your recovery plan. It should really be like probably every 6 months, you should really try and switch up your recovery plan. But you should stay on the same recovery plan for a good 6 months for sure, because it's equally important for you to develop certain things to work on and stress them as it is to recover and fix them. But if you're not allowing enough time and duration in place of each one of those sequences, you won't develop accordingly and properly, the right amount of tissue to work with, the amount of tension to build up, and the amount of neurological stimulation for the body to remember. That's a big thing that people just ignore. Like, you skip through stuff or you skip stepping stones and everything. There's a stress that needs to happen on the body every single step of the way. And that stress needs to be responded to accordingly and assessed accordingly, so that way you can build a proper recovery plan. If you don't, then good luck. You're just playing around. And this is when you get into like the real stuff, and a lot of people, they trust a lot of things that are out there, and don't trust me either. Try it out. Who am I? I'm nobody. I don't even care. Like PhD, whatever you want to say, all these people need to be, their work needs to be tested, okay, and proven. So, and it doesn't matter if they prove it. It doesn't matter if somebody else proves it, okay? It needs to be proven by you. Because a lot of times I've seen stuff out there and I've tried it and I'm like, I don't know how they're getting the idea that this is what they say it is, okay? And I've even done that in the past, coming up and stuff like that. I think we all have. We all have things that we do and we build and stuff. So just take everybody with a grain of salt. Always check and test every single thing that you see. Because if you're even involving something in your plan that is just something you took from somebody and you didn't actually test it, that's not good. And really, then you're not really serious about this, because you're more or less just doing what the average person is going to do. You're kind of just, you're playing around with stuff and you're just seeing stuff. But if you're really trying to build something and figure it out and save yourself a lot of years of legwork, then monitor this stuff, write it down, build yourself an actual plan. And it should be like this big on a piece of paper. Like, this is what I'm doing for 6 months. It shouldn't be some crazy thing. Your details inside of the stuff, you don't need to be like, oh, I did 3 seconds of or three sets of 5 minutes of rolling on the left side. You don't need that stuff. That'll drive you crazy. I'm just talking about your core components. Okay, I did this many days a week of this, and I did 2 spots a day, and I sat this up and I went in and I did this long of a dynamic warm up before I worked out, or I just went into my workout and went super light for 6 months. Try different things, but just categorize them. Okay, don't put itemize. If you feel like being a nut and writing the stuff down and doing things like that, so be it. But work into that, even if you are the type of person that does that. Just categorize stuff. Minimal. People are like, oh, I got a foam roll 3 hours a week. No, you don't. Who said that? Nobody ever should say that. That doesn't make any sense. And that's like when people come into Lifetime, like, or any personal training client I've ever had, and they're like, I got to eat 7 meals a day. And I'm like, are you going to guarantee me you can eat 7 meals a day? And almost never do they say yes. I'm like, what are you going to say? That you can eat maybe 3 to 4? And they're like, yeah, that's feasible. Why would you ever bite off something like that with your body? Your body is not something that you really want to play around with either. You don't want to sit there and be like, oh, I could do this or I can do that, like, and it's something that you should take a little bit more serious than just your average thing, like, it's amazing, the body, it truly is, but it does take like a little bit of know-how, like, in the know-how coming from you can be really easy. You just apply it categorically, like I said. And then once you do that, then it becomes easy. Half of this stuff, like, I don't have to do that anymore. And I'm not saying that any of you would have to do that for maybe more than like a couple 6-month sets. And then you'll really, like, by the third time, you should really be like, oh, I get this. Like, I know what I need to do. And I pretty much do the same thing every week. I just switch up slightly different things that I'm doing, but I'm not changing anything up. So don't try and take on this big feat. 2 5-minute spots a day, foam rolling, 2 2-minute stretches a day, foam rolling, however many days a week that you can bite off and chew that. You know what I mean? You're like, don't bite off this huge, you know, assumption. That's really what it is. Don't assume that you're going to do anything. Speak in a way that seems under, uh, like, like, uh, like, don't overestimate the whole thing. Do a small amount and build up from there. If you start out for 1 day a week, if that's what you can do, and then do 2 days a week. And the more you do this stuff, the better you'll feel. And like last night, spending the time on my neck and everything, I feel incredible compared to what it was. There's a couple of moments last week where I did not like doing my job. I made it a phenomenal experience. Um, but it could have been better because I just wasn't enjoying myself. So, you know, what do we do as far as if you're looking at anterior pelvic tilt, you look at posterior pelvic tilt. Every one of you is going to have an anterior pelvic tilt. So you just need to go like when you're like this, you're probably going to have quad dominance, meaning your quads are going to be bigger than your hamstrings. That just simply means that when your body goes like this, it pulls up through here and the hamstring pushes through the leg, okay? So your ball that should be sitting here is pushed through the leg. And what does it do? It makes your quads stick out more. So it's not like you have a much bigger quad and no hamstring. Once you drop this from here to here, the glute is going to go from out of your back down back into here. That ball that's up here is going to come down into the hamstring. And then the hamstring is, going to sit back. The whole leg is going to sit back like this. No longer will you look like you are falling forward, remember? You're going to sit back on it. The hamstring's going to come down. And then when it comes down, guess what? It comes down because the quad can sit in, okay? And no longer will you look like you have a big dominant quad. So don't think that this is like, oh, I got huge quads. Great. That means you have pretty good hamstrings too. And the quad's not as big as you think it is. You don't have to do all this huge work after the fact. Get the leg aligned, pelvis aligned, quad comes back, hamstring looks better immediately. And then you can go about building it up bigger if you want or doing more development if you want, and it'll be a lot more effective now that you have it in the right alignment. What else? You're either going to have, knee pain is going to be, it's going to change. It's going to be inside, outside, front, back, up, down. It's going to be all different types. If you're really quad dominant, you're going to start getting knee in the top, pain in the top of the knee because the quad is literally compressing down in it. But most people pass, it just depends, whatever way you're rotated. So if you could always hit me up and ask about knee pain, and I can help you dissect it. But typically it's going to be on the one side of the knee or the other, and then you can assess which way it is. It's either pulling really hard on the back of the leg and it's pulling up off the knee and hurting it that way, or pressing down. Those are the two most common. Then you get into, shin splints, Achilles, or plantar fasciitis. Those are the ones. Some people get actual calf muscle pain. You'll get cramps. I'll include that. Okay, calf cramps, but those can be with everything. So shin splints, that's where the shin, right through here, that's where the muscle is literally like fusing itself to it. It's connecting it and adhering itself to it. That's where you get shin splints. That's why it feels like fire. So you can actually release the calf, the shin, and it'll drop that down, makes it remove those almost immediately too. What else? Achilles issues, those typically come the same as you would get the hamstring issues. Instead of feeling like knee pain on the front, you'd feel it on the back, and that's less common. And that's where you get it, where it pulls into the Achilles and you get real tightness through there, through the calcaneus back over the heel. And that's less common. Typically people get more shin splints than they do Achilles issues. And when people say that they get Achilles issues, almost never do they say that. They typically always say they've got plantar fasciitis. They're feeling it in their foot. And that's when the whole strap of the leg all the way down from your butt being up, it pulls all this up. And it takes all the slack down to the bottom of your foot, and eventually you have plantar fasciitis. Basically, the plantar fascia in the arch of your foot gets pulled on so hard that you just get constant pain. All of these things, hip pain, low back pain, all the stuff that comes from it, it all can be assessed through fixing your pelvis. And not only that, but when you fix your pelvis and you drop it here and it's better, and then you hit like regions with the foam roller and stuff in your armpit, now your shoulders will sit back and they'll stay back. A lot of times people are pitched like this because of their pelvis and they're fixing everything in their shoulders. Well, it's keeping you loaded this way. So it doesn't really have any bearing on, is it going to change your shoulders, because it's actually inhibiting them. Your shoulders are still stuck like that. And if you loosen all this stuff around here and you're still like this, you're going to most likely encourage it to be worse. Sometimes you'll sit up straighter and it'll be better and your body's loose enough through here to where it'll accept that and start working down. But most of the time you stay like this. Your body doesn't want you to put pressure through here until you change the pelvis, because your base is from here to here. So you don't have a good sturdy base. The body doesn't want to put any weight on it. But it's also why, like, people that I work on who, they're like, oh, I hurt worse. I'm like, yeah, you were like this and now you're like this. So you're putting pressure on that area. It makes sense that you would have a difference in pressure, and therefore it's going to be sensitive and tender until your body, reacclimates and gets stronger and loosens it up. Sometimes you just need to get on there with the roller and or stretching and break up the more of the area right through there so it can accept more of that. But hitting these areas, if you put your hand here on an anterior pelvic tilt, if you put your hand here and you hit, and there's a big bony rock, like solid spot through the trochanter region, that trochanter bone here, you need to get on your side, just like this, laying down on the ground, and foam roll right here on that spot, melt it away, minutes and minutes and minutes. And then do the same exact thing on the other side. Your hip gait will immediately change. You'll stand up and immediately notice that you will be like from here and probably a lot less. Then you want to get like up into here and push these muscles down. Dig in here, right at the top of the groin, top of the hip, top of the quad, and let it melt and push down towards your knee. I have a pelvic tilt video, an actual foam rolling pelvic tilt video. I'm going to make more now that we're doing it like this. I feel like less inclined to like take it and edit it and make it all this stuff. I just talk it through and do what I should have done. This, opens up the opportunity for me to do that. So I will link that video. I think Sarah can put it in here in the description, and then you guys can check it out. It's just part one. I need to do another one. I can do that next week. I'll actually do it'll give me something to focus on for that, so I can make this. We'll go through some pelvic tilt stuff this next week. Sarah's going to be needing a lot of this, so we'll focus on a lot of like pelvic tilt stuff. We'll focus on a lot of like hip stuff, and then only for a couple weeks, just to like really get into like how you knock out the pelvic tilt. Okay, how you, once you've knocked that out, how you truly set the shoulders to where they stay, like how I am now. I never used to be like this. I was really rounded, and now I can actually I stand like this. I'm not just doing it because I'm holding the mic. I have really good scaption. You can see the gap between my back. I just naturally stand like that now. Even with my arms, you can see the depth between my spine through there from even turning my head. That's more of what you want. And I still need to get through here. Okay. It's still up through there, but my pelvis is sitting relatively neutral. I feel my lower abs engaged, things that I haven't had for, a long time. So, what was I going to say? Yeah. Focus on here, focus on here. The other major one is to get up, legs crossed, sitting on a roller and hitting right into here. Okay. Right in the glute medius. Okay. So you're sitting in the top upper glute. We did this in the first few episodes the first episode when we went way back in the beginning of this school. We did whenever we went to the lower body, we hit this area really good. So you can go find that. You can find in the recent weeks we've done some hip rolling and stuff like that. You can just go through these and just check each one out and find all the different ways that we show you how to roll and hit this area. I'm trying to do this to where I don't overlap stuff. I want to be able to refer you guys back. That's what this is supposed to be. It's like a database. Okay. So some of these things are like talking points to explain to you like why we're doing this, what we're doing it for, what is the purpose and relief you're going to get, or the effect it's going to give. So top of here needs to be pushed down. Okay. Opening the leg and hitting right through here. We focused on that as high as you can go in your groin. There's a good size spot that you're going to find there. That and that and that. And then here, you're hitting all these high points. You're dropping it. Your one leg's longer than the other is not going to be a thing anymore. It's going to drop both your hips out of the pelvic girdle, and it's going to make you look taller. It's going to make you stand nice and tall and upright. It's going to make you feel like everything through that region fire. So if your glutes aren't working, if your hamstrings aren't turning on, if you can't feel your calves or they won't grow, these are all things that happen when you are pulling on that whole posterior chain, everything through here. As this comes up, it pulls everything down here with it. And when it does, it will pull all the way down into those calves, compress them against that shin, give you crazy shin splints, Achilles, or plantar fasciitis, or all of the above sometimes in horrific scenarios. And it's going to inhibit the growth of all of the back of your leg. Why? The whole sheath of fascia and everything is slamming those muscles into the femur, into the tibia, into the trochanter, into your pelvic girdle. Everything's getting shoved into it. And so because of that, you have all of these muscles that they're not filling with blood. They're not getting the full contraction. They don't have the recruitment because they're already preloaded and slammed up. Muscles are working off leverage. So if you don't torque them and leverage them right, it's not going to work. You have to be able to compress into them. The body's a shock absorber, so it needs to compress and then push out and squeeze into things in order to turn on. It's all mechanical. We look at it like this thing, like we don't plug into the wall the same way, okay? Our brain is pretty phenomenal, but it needs to be recruited. It needs to be instigated. It needs to be like encouraged to do things. So when you're loaded and everything's pulled up, and you're going like that, then, if you're looking at yourself and your groin looks like it's pulled back like this, that's not good. That's a major anterior pelvic tilt. And you have all sorts of things you're not seeing that are good for you, and all sorts of bad things that you have that are happening to you, as far as meridians of energy being pinched off, circulatory pathways, nerves, all of the flow of our energy that like drives us, especially women down there. Guys too, though, but women, it really inhibits you as a person. It can make your hormones and everything nuts, just simply being compressed. It can make you not go to the bathroom every single day. And women really have anterior pelvic tilts a lot nowadays, bad ones. And when you do, I talk to many of them who work out and pee their pants or can't go to the bathroom, or all these different symptoms that happen just because their anterior pelvic tilt is cinching off everything in that area. So this is something that I was going to do stuff for me. Like I'm just going to focus on the pelvic tilt today, and then turn it over to Sarah to let her do a bunch of stretching. But go find my pelvic tilt video. It's when Sarah uploads it, we'll include the link here, and see like just the ways to start rolling this. And next week when we go into it, I'm going to go into like a full like pelvic tilt thing. I'm going to go and look at what I did in that first video. I'll just keep that one for now. And I'll try and touch on some of those things, and then I'll try and I will touch on some of those things, and then I will do more of the things that I didn't do in that pelvic tilt. So hitting the outside perennial tissue right through here, getting into the inner thigh through here, hitting this major lump of the quad right in that big collection point right through here. It's probably the biggest junction in the body when it comes to that. And then watching how that allows all the tissue down there to lengthen, and allows all the tissue that's up here to drop and sit lower. And that's what needs to happen. Everybody's all sucked up. And when we're all sucked up and pulled up into the joints, muscles, they work off of two joints, okay? They start and they end, and they pull together, and it pulls those joints together. So we need to lengthen those, and then we need to drop those muscles down so the other muscles can have a place to go. Otherwise, you're not going to fix your pelvic tilt ever. And your shoulders are never going to get better. I'm just telling you. They might feel better for a period of time, but you're going to run into like time bombs exploding in your face. So that's where I'm going to close it up for today. Basically, focus on getting those points. Go find the pelvic tilt video from here and go through that. Go click the link in the description. Go to the pelvic tilt video, try that stuff out. Go back through our videos is what I meant to say, and find the other stuff that we did now. That once you see that pelvic tilt video, then go in that region and really see what it's like to spend some time opening this area, fully opening it, and seeing the difference in how you're not like here. If you have any curve to your lower back, you have a pelvic tilt. And if it's pulled up like this, then you're losing development all through here. You're causing blood flow and nerves and everything to be restricted. You are feeling different as a human being, period. There's no way around it. That's a big area for all human beings, but it's going to throw off everything up here. And then it really starts driving guys off too. So it destroys all of us, the pelvic tilt. It's the true center. The abdomen is not your core. Okay. There's no core in anatomy. Okay. So core training actually destroys your traps and everything like that. And it destroys your pelvis. It gives it a major anterior pelvic tilt. Don't stop core training. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, don't look at it like your center, or you will always be off center. Okay, this is your center. Ask any woman who's had a baby where the baby's head sits, and they will tell you exactly where your true center is. It has nothing to do with your stomach. Okay, it always sits very, very low. Okay, so think about these things. Think about the pelvic tilt and how much it is. If you are a posterior tilt, I will say it's almost no different. A pelvic tilt is assessed in the way you fix it in both ways, because opening these areas on somebody with a posterior pelvic tilt will immediately take them from here and they're like, boop, it'll kick their butt right out. It'll fill up. And it's weird. It goes from just a total pancake booty to like it fills up, and then they have like a little roundness to it. And it happens on super old people, young people alike. It doesn't matter. Posterior tilts, they fix themselves super easy. So if you are somebody who feels like you're like this, because I have a lot of people who are like bikini pros who are like, I know I have a posterior tilt. And I'm like, no, you don't. There's absolutely no way it's possible. So, but there is some people who I know are like this. And, your grandma or whatever, she needs to assess it the same way. So posterior, anterior pelvic tilt, focus on it the same exact way. And then try the video that's in here. Look forward to next week. I'm going to go into it like we're really going to touch on the pelvic tilt and expanding on part 1 that I did in the video that we're going to link here, and then going into part 2. So stay tuned now. Like Sarah is going to, if you're, obviously there's nobody live right now, but we're going to continue. Sarah's going to go into whatever she's going to stretch today, and probably touch on some pelvic tilt stuff too. So thank you guys. I look forward to seeing you next week.